We are here because we are dedicated to helping members of our community build lean, strong bodies and confident, resilient minds. Determined to elevate the lives of working professionals, stay-at-home parents, and anyone who is ready to level up their life. Our invigorating group fitness classes, practical nutrition programs, and authentic coaches help ignite your life. Find a place that believes in you. Find a place that challenges you. Find CrossFit Southpaw. All right, guys, welcome back to the Southpaw Spotlight. We are here with one of our members, Drew Shepp. Drew is a pastor at Substance Church. We'll get his official title here in a second, but he's a great member to have, usually morning class guy, sometimes 11:30s. But Drew, thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Yeah, Nick, awesome to be here, man. I had such a good time watching the first two episodes with Addison and with Paul, man. So it's an honor to be hanging with you guys.
Absolutely. Well, grateful to have you. I was kind of thinking about this, and I know that you have had some exposure to CrossFit earlier on in your life. And tell me about how you got started with it and what that process was like.
Totally. I think I played college basketball, Division II college basketball, back 15, 16 years ago.
That doesn't surprise me, but I didn't know that.
Yeah, right. I go about 6'9", so I'm taller than your average CrossFitter, right? And so I played, 15, 16 years ago here in Minnesota, Division II. I think I probably followed a pretty similar path to a lot of college athletes where, playing hoops in college on scholarship, your life is basically decided for you for 4 or 5 years of college. You have a schedule and a workout regimen, and a lot of that is scheduled and structured for you. And then when you kind of get done with that, you kind of take a journey of having it not so structured for you. And so went through some years, got married, had some kids, went through some years of, going to the YMCA and trying to get into running. And, I was doing the 3-hour bro sessions at the YMCA where you take about 5 or 6 minutes in between sets of incline bench, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I really never found what fit. Kind of just, had some seasons of gaining some weight and some seasons of not. And especially with I have 4 kids now. And so just really trying to figure it out, right? Trying to figure out what does fitness look like in different seasons of life. And then, a few years ago, Grace, who's one of our amazing members, one of my coworkers, actually, Grace Melander, started talking about this place called CrossFit Blaine, right? Where she was attending, and she just had a great time. She literally wouldn't shut up about it. I'm like, what is this thing called CrossFit? Still didn't really check it out. It was just kind of expensive and seemed just, kind of seemed like a fad, to be honest with you. And then, as you mentioned, I'm a pastor at a church here in the Twin Cities, and a guy started coming to one of our services, and I noticed this guy was just jacked, right? This young guy, he looked like I wanted to look, right? Turns out his name was Anthony Davis, and he was in town to compete with Timberwolf CrossFit in the games that year. He was in town to train, so I kind of befriended him, and as a part of a talk I was giving on discipline and spiritual growth, I actually had this idea. I said, hey, Anthony, would I be able to come into your gym at Timberwolf, and would you write me a workout designed basically to destroy me, to prove a point, this idea that like there's growth and progress through pain and suffering, like we can get somewhere if we're willing to kind of lean into pain. And so he did, man. Like, it was my first ever CrossFit workout. I think we did some kind of hang clean strength workout, which didn't go well for me. That was the beginning of my demise in that hour-long workout session. I think he programmed something. I think it was assault bike, 135-pound thrusters, and burpee box jumps, like an 18-minute AMRAP, right? And so I go through that workout, and there I am on video. You can probably still find this on our website if you really want to find it, right? Just laying on the floor, feeling like I want to die, right? And if you follow some of the CrossFit meme accounts, there's that meme that says, everything hurts and I'm dying. What time do you want to do this again tomorrow? I was hooked from that minute on, right? For whatever reason, I had found something that pushed me to my limit and beyond. And for some reason, I wanted to come back. And so that was kind of my first introduction to CrossFit, right? And really still kind of dabbled along the way. My wife and I actually then from there, we were members of the Y. So for a season, I was that guy at the YMCA doing burpee box jumps and kettlebell swings. All the old people.
I've been that guy too.
Were like, what is he doing right now?
That's how I got started.
That guy. Totally. And then my wife and I actually joined a kettlebell gym a couple of years ago, which was super fun. So basically CrossFit conditioning strength with kettlebells. Did that for a couple of years. And then along the way, you were so kind to have me drop in every once in a while. I drop in on the 4th of July or I think you guys, your Southpaw was doing a free week. So I jumped in for all 5 days of the free week and just like a kid in a candy store, and then lo and behold, come December this last year, I entered myself into a drawing and win a free year at Southpaw, which is like the biggest gift ever. I'd always wanted to be a part of it, never really pulled the trigger on it. So to win that and then start that in February, it's been, and in a lot of ways, just a dream come true to be able to be a regular at Southpaw, to be kind of in the mix. It's just so much fun. So long story short, that's my journey to CrossFit, and I couldn't be happier with where I am now.
That's awesome, man. I want to dig in a little bit to that, because I think it's hard sometimes to say what it is that sets CrossFit apart, right? The methodology itself, I think, is especially unique. But as you said, with the kettlebell gym, there's a lot of things that are very kind of similar to CrossFit now. But one of the big dynamics is this, like, twofold. One is kind of the community aspect, where you push a little bit harder when you're around other people, and they kind of help keep you accountable. But secondly is that it really is this type of workout experience that's very reminiscent of sports or growing up playing sports, right? And it really kind of tears you down, right? Which is counterintuitive. That's attractive, right? There's very few places that people actively pay money to experience pain. And going back to that sermon that you told, I think there are a lot of parallels between, what happens in churches and what happens in CrossFit gyms. What was that sermon about, or what do you talk about in that?
Totally. So a lot of what we talk about at our church is this idea of, and it's really a CrossFit principle as well. It's progress through community, right? And there's an element where, to play the faith card, the tradition of faith that I live in, right? It's this idea that humans we're not created to live life alone, if that makes sense. And you go through all the science of it. There's so much science that backs up that claim. We kind of talk a lot about show me your friends and I'll show you your future. You are the sum total of your 4 to 7 closest friends. You try as you might, you can't escape the most intimate influences in your life. You're going to become who you surround yourself with. And so I think that's true spiritually. I think that's true socially. I think that's true physically in so many ways. And so I think what CrossFit really taps into is a really cool principle, this idea that, for most of us, we probably wouldn't sign up to do the kind of things that we do every day in the gym alone. To basically, and that's why when I was that guy at the Y, for a season it was working, right, doing burpee box jumps and kettlebell swings at the YMCA. But there was just a certain limit I wasn't willing to push myself to without other people alongside me, pushing me to my limits and really exploring kind of the pain cave, kind of going to that dark place, right? We're this morning in the gym, right, alongside guys like Andrew and Andy and so many amazing people that I get to work out with every day. It's just fun. We're buds. We have fun. We actually, I just had coffee with a guy yesterday from the gym, and we're just processing life. Then we go in the gym and try to destroy each other, which is really fun. It's fun to be able to do that. So it's progress through community. Which and the second thing you mentioned, I think, also is this idea that it's also progress through pain. Right. Voluntary pain. I think, this world is full of enough pain as it is, that we didn't sign up for. Right. And I think there's kind of a flight or flight response that many of us have to when we experience pain in our lives. And, C.S. Lewis, one of my favorite authors, talks about pain being something that gets your attention. Right. He talks about how, pleasure and ease is really easy to ignore, but pain insists upon being attended to. It gets your attention in a way when things are going well, don't. And so with pain, when you sign up for voluntary pain, whether it's physical pain or whatever kind of pain you're signing up for, pain can either cause you to kind of shrink back, or it can kind of cause you to lean in and ask, okay, what is this doing to me? What is my gut response to this? And if I can lean in and push through that, there's not a lot of things in the rest of my day that I don't think I can do. It's the fact that we were able to this morning, I think the workout was 21, 15, 9, right? Wall balls, box jumps, and deadlifts. This morning, before I even came into the office, I was laying around on the ground feeling like I was going to die. Right. And so going through that experience this morning of pain, of community, of progress, set me up for a day where, man, I'm going to face some stuff in my day today, but I've already done something hard. I've already done something that pushed me to my limit. And now the rest of the day, in a way, kind of feels like, man, I can face anything I want to face today.
There's so many cool things to unpack in there. And we've had a number of conversations offline that, we could go down rabbit holes with any of these tangents, but I really like what you're saying about pain, and that analogy that there's already so much pain out there, right? And I think that that's true, and I think that it's also some of that pain is a direct response to our desire to avoid pain, right? Like it's
Totally.
so easy to, like, rather than going to meet friends for lunch or making lunch and talking with people socially, it's you go through the drive-through, right? It's everything is so quick
Yeah.
and fast, and we're looking for the shortcuts, and that results in the long term of us feeling so much more anxious and depressed all the time and insecure and unsure, and we're, verbally berating the driver who just cut in front of us, because we're just shut in these little
Yeah.
bubbles, just like quarantining
Yep.
them. And there's something about being in a community, right? A community of progress, and where you don't have your phone with you, you're not on your computer. I say as we're talking here, but you're totally detached,
Right.
and you're experiencing this direct shot of pain, right? And being able to kind of overcome it and learn that you can get through it helps you learn that you're resilient and carries out into other elements of your life.
100%, man. I love what you said, Nick, about we are creatures of comfort, right? We have been conditioned to be comfortable, whether it's the one click buy on Amazon. It's just so convenient, right? I like one of the things I like to say, we live in an Instapot world, right? Or a microwave world. We want to fast forward, we want convenience, we want acceleration. And typically the best things in life are less pressure cooker and more crock pot, if that makes sense. It's less destination and more process. And I think a lot of times what pain tends to do, at least in my experience, and as I've looked inward at myself and worked with a lot of people over the years, is pain tends to threaten what we perceive our destination to be, right? So pain seems to get in the way of where I think I want to go, rather than seeing pain as an obstacle. I think if we can ever see pain as something to be a steward of, or something to leverage in my process, and not even worry about the destination as much as be fully committed and show up in the process I'm currently in. I think we can leverage and steward pain in actually some pretty cool ways, right? Where if I see pain as an obstacle to where I'm going, and if I'm in a hurry to get to a destination. So for example, like I think of setting, I'm all about setting goals, but I do think sometimes that setting goals can cause us to try to like take shortcuts or manipulate the process to achieve a goal, when I think often I believe the same is true spiritually, that it's so much less about my destination and way more about, am I fully engaged in the process of getting there? And if I'm in the process, the destination might ebb and flow and change a little bit, but man, the process is actually the most important thing. So if that process then includes pain, right, I can focus, I can lean into that moment of the process and leverage that pain into growth. I can't remember who said it, but one of my favorite authors said, pain can, if you allow it to, pain can actually be one of the best classrooms, one of the best teachers you'll ever have. It teaches you something about yourself, about the world, about how do I respond to adversity and discomfort. And if I can include pain as a welcome part of my process and not something to kind of keep at arm's length, I think our destination may change, right? So like if I showed up in the gym today and my goal was to beat everybody and I didn't, was that a failure? Or was my goal today to show up and have another day in the process of me becoming a more fitter version of myself? Right? If that's the case, then I definitely won today, even if it was maybe an off day. I didn't lift as much as I thought I would. My 3-rep max wasn't where I wanted it to be, but it was another step in the process.
This is great, man. And there's one of the ways that someone said this to me recently, and it really resonated with me, the wording of it. But it was, instead of either like trying to reject pain or just accept it, we're gonna dance with it, right? We can dance.
Good.
Sometimes we're leading, sometimes it's leading us, but we have this ebb and flow, right? And I think goals are kind of a double-edged sword. It's good to have
100%.
them and good to have direction, but how do we set them? And I really try to look or encourage others to look at setting goals that are contingent upon how you show up, right? Rather than, if I have a goal of hitting a 700-pound deadlift, like I physically, anatomically, I don't know if I could possibly do that, right? And there's a lot of other factors that go into that, or
Right.
winning a workout, right? Maybe someone is just faster than me, right? I can still do great, but they're just faster.
Totally.
It's out of my control, right? So like you said, focusing on that process oriented goal of I'm going to work out X number of days per week or whatever that happens to be. But
100%.
that dance with pain, I
100%.
think, is great. And that one of
I
the,
love that.
yeah, these guys I was working with recently, one of their big thrusts, so I had to start out by writing my own eulogy and then identifying core values, right? And it's really kind of sobering and also kind of freeing to look at it, because I think we have this idea of kind of what we want life to be. It's like, when we're younger, we want to be cool or we want to be successful or whatever, but we don't really know what that means, right? It's kind of this, it's like these words that
100%.
don't really have meaning. Like, what is cool, right? A lot of tattoos and shoes, right? No, I'm kidding. But
I mean, yes, but
yeah. No, but it's kind of amorphous. And so when you actually can sit down and identify, what do I want? What do I want my life to look like? And how do I want to get there? What are the values that I have that allow me to feel fulfilled along the way? And then when you counter obstacles,
that's so
we can
good.
learn how to work our way, navigate our way through them based on what our values are. And
I love that. I love that,
yeah.
Nick.
So
That's so good, man. I love what you said about goals being a double-edged sword, because if you think about that, it's kind of like open-handed goal setting, right? So if I set a goal and the tighter I hold to that goal, I obsess over it, and I'm going to do everything it takes to get this goal. It's almost like the tighter you hold to it, the more damage it can do.
yeah,
Right. When you're holding onto that
absolutely.
sword, but when you hold it open-handedly, you're holding that goal, you're setting a goal, you're moving towards it, but also making room for it. I mean, how many of us had goals in January of 2020 when the world around us completely exploded? And if we hold to our goals for dear life that year, a lot of us probably ended up disappointed and frustrated that year, rather than being able to do that dance with pain, like you're talking about, allow it to teach us something about ourselves and the world around us, to be self-aware enough to know what season am I in, what's going on in my life right now, what's going on in the world around me, and not be afraid. It's not a failure to shift and mold your goals, right, to what's going on in your life, whether it's a physical injury or an emotional trauma that you're going through, or not being able to literally go to the gym for 6 months because you're having to work out online. That's not a loss, right?
Yeah, just because you write it down on paper doesn't mean that it can help give you direction, but you also have to be aware that these things are going to shift and your values may shift. And we have to acknowledge that, and being able to, everything is well, we're recording this, but everything is recorded. And I feel like people are so like you look at politicians who like vote on one policy, 10 years ago, and they voted on a different one today, and they're like, they're flip-floppers, and it's like, oh, they, not that all politicians are great, but like maybe they just changed their mind and they grew and evolved. I was reading this book recently called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, and it's about the archetypes of, it's, in this case it was males, but it could be applied equally to males or females. And one of the ones for boys is the hero, right? Or children is the hero. It's an archetype that they have, that they kind of want to be the hero of their own story. And when things aren't in congruity with that, it creates, friction. But it evolves. As you evolve into an adult, you become a warrior, right? And I usually looked at that evolution the opposite way, that the warrior would evolve into the hero. But what I liked about it so much is that the hero has to be the victor, the champion. It has to revolve around him. But as you grow older, you learn that with age, with time, with practice of honing your skill, you learn that you're not always going to win, that you're not always going to have the answers, that you're going to kind of do the best with what you have, and you're going to, again, dance with life. I love that metaphor of becoming that. I think of, the samurai movies or whatever, like the look in someone's eye that they're not always going to win, but they know that they're good at what they do. They're practiced and they have direction. And it's a cool metaphor about going that direction. I think it ties into what we're talking about.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love the idea of knowing that you're not going to win every battle, that you're not going to do everything perfectly. But there's a patience. Like I think of like old seasoned warriors, right? There's like a patience and a stillness to it's almost like a deep-seated soul level, heart level
Yes.
peace and patience, right?
Yeah.
Whereas they've seen some stuff, right? And they know. And I think I liken it to, I'm going to be 38 this year, so I got a long ways to go, but I've seen some stuff, right? I've been married for 14 years. My oldest son just turned 13. And so one of the things I've learned in life is that, maturity and growth, the more I learn, the more I grow, the more I realize how much I don't know, right?
Yeah.
The more knowledge I acquire, the more books I read, the more I grow in leadership and then grow in my role here at the church or in fitness even, the more I realize how little I actually know. I think that's one of the beauties of fitness is, no matter how fit you get, you can always make it hurt worse, right? There's never, you never like reach an echelon where you're like, hey, I'm good now. I've arrived. And I think if we can take that in life, even as I think the truest warriors know that there's always going to be somebody better. There's always going to be somebody who knows more than I do. And so my goal is not just to win at all costs, but it is to be fully engaged in the process and be self-secure and self-aware, to keep on learning, to stay humble, to stay disciplined, and to keep on going. And I would take that even a step further. We've talked about this, Nick, where, from the hero to the warrior, then to, I would call it like the sage, where there's another evolution, I think, in all of our lives, right? Where we then end up being the person who helps other people take the journey from hero to warrior. I think of like Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, where Frodo's the hero, and you have you have the king, and you have all Legolas and all these amazing warrior characters. But without Gandalf, the sage, the guide, none of them go anywhere. Right. And so there's like a director or a sage or a coach or a leader in their life who's been there and seen some stuff, and then doesn't keep those things to themselves. But then they go. And so that's part of the reason I love Southpaw is I've watched what you guys have built at Southpaw, Nick, and you as coaches, but I've seen members pick up other members off the floor, and members come support newer members and meet them. And there's this beautiful community developing, which I just love that, maybe some of us have been around the CrossFit space for a lot longer. And when a new person comes in, it's not like, oh, buckle up, man, you're about to get slaughtered. It's like, no, we're glad you're here. Let us help you get acclimated to this life that we live together. So there's a hero, warrior, and then sage, kind of that mentor coach role that I think is really important for a lot of us to lean into.
Well, and I think, Drew, that's a great look at that evolution. And it's interesting because those roles interplay depending on where you're at in life, but also what area of attention your focus is getting right, or what area of focus your attention is getting right now, right? When I go to church, I become more of I'm not a hero in church, but like I'm in that learning stage, right, where I need to learn more. And
a student maybe, right?
Right. And same thing, I use this analogy a lot. Like when I need to go get my truck fixed, I could probably figure out how to do it myself. It would take a lot of time, a lot of mistakes, but I might eventually be able to do it. But I take it into someone who really knows what they're doing. And
that's so good.
We have these. I remember in school growing up, some classes that I enjoyed, and I'd kind of like get into it, and then I just found myself kind of like rolling on it, and I was one of the more leaders in the class. But then there were others that there were other leaders in the class, and I took in the role of being the goof off or whatever, right? And I realized that it wasn't necessarily like I was this one person. I was like fitting into roles where they were, and that was probably partially due to my youth, but I think we still have that in society somewhat, and that's due to our interdependent nature in whatever social, physical, spiritual. We have these different roles that we take up. But the side
I completely agree, and I think that. Totally, and I think what we have to watch out for a lot of the time, maybe just myself, self-disclosure, right, is the more I grow, the more my pride wants to take over, right? And so to stay humble and to remain a student our entire lives, the more, even learning more, becoming a quote unquote expert in a certain field, to maintain a certain level of humility and teachability in my life, to never arrive, to never assume I know all there is to know about a specific discipline or a certain thing. And so, so for my role here at the church, I tend to take on the role of teacher a lot, whether it's a coach or a motivator or a teacher or a leader, right? But at the same time, I want to balance that out with purposely positioning myself as a student and as a learner in other settings.
Mhm.
And I kind of have to go seek those out specifically
Mhm.
here, like in the setting I'm in every day, where
Yeah.
I have to intentionally position myself with people who are better at my job than I am,
Yeah.
who know more than I do.
Mhm.
But if I don't, if I don't force myself to go find those, I actually don't have to. And so
Mhm.
I could become almost like an echo chamber of
Yes.
myself and my own learning, and become very prideful. And one of
Yeah.
the definitions we talk about with our staff a lot is this idea of teachability
Uh-huh.
being the ability to relearn what you think you already know,
Yeah.
right? This idea that I want to always have an ability to learn even something that I perceive to be my area of expertise.
Mhm.
I always want to learn. I always want to be the most curious person in the room. I
Yeah.
always want to listen. I want to ask questions. Andy Stanley, who's a Christian author and pastor, talks about an experience where he was invited into this think tank with, I think it was like, 10 or 15 Fortune 50 CEOs. And he said,
Mhm.
when I left that meeting, I realized I was doing all of the talking. He's like, why was I doing all the talking in this
Yeah.
meeting with all these brilliant leaders of industry and business? He's like, I
Uh-huh.
realized it was because those guys and girls were asking me all the questions,
They
because
got to where they
they had
were
gotten to the place where
because
they
they were
were by being
listening.
the most curious person in the room, right?
Yeah.
And what he
Uh-huh.
says out of that, he says a lot of times we focus on, walking into a room and trying to be the most interesting person in a room rather
Uh-huh.
than being the most interested person in the room,
Yes.
right? Walk into a room being the one people need to turn their heads and look at me, rather than walking into every room and trying to position myself as a learner rather than a
Mhm.
teacher. I think that's something that's so important. So it's part of the reason why I love CrossFit, right? Is because there's always something new to learn.
Yeah.
I love learning from you and from Addison and from all the other coaches, and getting coached up and learning, because it's really a fun place to position myself as, man, I just want to learn. I just want to
Yeah.
grow.
We call it the white belt mentality, right? Constantly being a white belt, or
Yeah.
and we, I guess, as a coach, that's something that I feel passionately about, is that one of our roles, we're asking you guys to come in and learn and have guidance, and that's something that we need to practice in our lives too. And it doesn't have to be
Sure.
necessarily um, directly related to fitness, though it often is for us, but it could be leadership, or identity, or whatever it happens to be, nutrition.
Yeah.
And I love to hear that that's something that you practice as well. What are do you find yourself doing courses for that? Is it conversations that you have with people, or what are forms that takes?
Yeah. Great question. One of the things that I call my pastor, he's also my boss, right? Our lead
Yeah.
pastor, Pastor Peter. Things that he talks about a lot. Like, actually, we have accountability as staff members here, where always wants us in relationship with different pastors, whether they're from other
Mhm.
churches or from other organizations, who do our jobs better than us. And so what we
Mhm.
talk about a lot here, even with people that attend our church, that call our church home, is kind of this idea, like, who are the people that are living the life that you want to live, either for me, as a father, as a
Mhm.
husband, as a pastor, as a leader, as a manager of people, as a public speaker, right? So
Mhm.
who are the people that are doing the things that you want to do? And then what are you doing to earn the right to be around them? Because
Mhm.
typically the people that you need to
Yeah.
learn from are probably going to be too busy to like have
Mhm.
coffee with you, or to
Yeah.
mentor you weekly, or to jump on a
Yeah.
phone call. So what are you doing to earn the right to be around them? And a couple of those things that we talk about are just, if you're somebody who you would love to be mentored or coached by, it's not going to them and say, hey, will you mentor me? It's going to them and say, hey, how can I serve you? Is there
Mhm.
anything I can like do for you? Could I come over and watch your kids
That's a
sometime?
great
Could
way
I
to
come
look at it.
over
Wow.
and mow your lawn at some point?
Yeah.
Could I earn some equity in your life, and kind of to earn the right to be
Yes.
around you, and then to
Yeah.
be in relationship with you, rather than kind of this
Yeah.
manipulated artificial relationship that I have
Yes.
created just because I think I want to be like you, right? So that's one
Yes.
way, is
Yeah.
to like, how can I find people who are doing my dreams and earn the right to be around them? The second
Yeah.
thing would be to, in a sense, kind of sow seeds of it, to pay it forward.
Mhm.
If you're looking for a mentor or a coach, go and be that for other people,
Mhm.
right? Like go and do that. So
Yes.
if you're looking for somebody to do that for you, we better darn well be willing to do that for somebody else first,
Yes. Yeah.
right? So, and for us, that's a spiritual principle of being
Uh-huh.
faithful with what God has given me, and
Mhm.
and paying that forward into coaching and leading.
Yeah.
I'm trusting that if I'm living that stewardship out, then I'm going to find people, then, and God's going to send people into my path that are able to coach me and mentor me. So I think it kind of goes both ways, right? It's being willing to live a life sacrificially of mentoring and leading and coaching people that are, would be farther along down the path than me, whether it's in my marriage and parenting, in their spiritual journey, whatever that looks like for them. And then finding who are those people that I can serve and invest in and build a relationship with, that long-term that might look like a relationship that I will learn a lot from.
This, again, kind of another tangent, but what you're talking about reminded me of another, I've been really getting into language recently and how language impacts, but the idea of dancing with pain, right? Or whatever. Doesn't mean that like balance necessarily isn't necessarily the goal, or, I says, what do you want out of life? Well, I want to find good balance, or I want to find happiness, or whatever. I think what we're looking for is harmony, right? We're looking for a
100%,
harmony of
100%.
learning and teaching, and between the areas of our lives. And that means that sometimes I'm going to be spending more time learning, and sometimes I'm going to be spending more time teaching.
Totally.
We may not always know where that is, and it can be fluid, and it's okay if it's fluid. But I love I just love that
that's so good,
metaphor, dude. Finding harmony, but that's
I
what
love
you're
that.
talking about.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I think I'm a words guy, so I think words matter. I think balance is a complete myth, honestly. I think anytime we're shooting for balance, we're just going to get really frustrated and feel out of control, because balance is essentially, think about a scale, right? It's balance is predicated on this idea that we can section off our life into like equal chunks. And if life is just not that simple, and so if I'm looking for balance, my word, I mean, people would probably look at my life and be like, man, you're totally out of balance. I'd say, maybe you're right. I don't have balance, but what I have is synergy.
Yes.
Right? My life is synergized and aligned to my current priorities, to the current season of my marriage and my parenting and my job and my physical body where I'm at right now. And in 5 years, that's going to look a lot different. So if I'm looking, synergy now looks different than synergy probably even in 2 years, right? And so balance to me, man, I try to live a lot of like the number of hours I'm at my job balanced with the number of hours. It's just a failing battle, right? Rather than, no, I want synergy in my life. I want to live an aligned, purposeful life, right? And kind of like when things get out of whack, okay, I want to back to synergy, back to alignment. And that's just a lot more achievable, because that's more fluid. It's more conversational. It's more being self-aware than simply trying to say, I want to segment my life out in balanced chunks. It's just literally not possible, in my opinion.
Dude, I love that. And I could be wrong on this, but I believe the definition of synergy ties into the idea that when things are in, I'll say harmony, or whatever you want to use, that their effect is multiplied, right?
100%. Exactly.
I love that idea.
The sum of the parts is greater than the sum is greater than the parts of the whole.
Yeah. And I think that's true with, I look at that in CrossFit or in church. Like, I feel more spiritually, alive when I'm at church around other people listening to music, right? Than when I'm just by myself singing music, or when I'm working out around others, I have a much more effective workout than when I'm by myself. But that's a beautiful way to look at it. Synergy. I like that. And the idea of balance almost being like, my goal is balance, or my goal is to be cool. It's like, well, what does that actually mean? And you're right. It's not, it's kind of like ambivalent. It doesn't have a strong definition. And we say these words, and I'm guilty of it in many areas, but I've recently tried to stop saying I think, and I try to either say I imagine or I believe, right? And they have two slightly different meanings, but I think is kind of this, it's kind of a dull word, right? And so how can we change our language a little bit? And that in turn changes so much. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole. Drew, I got one last question. I try to ask it on most of the podcasts. But what would you say to someone who was thinking about trying out CrossFit?
I love that question. I actually get a lot. So people know that I do CrossFit. People that either here at our staff, or I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, man. I bought the shoes, got the tattoos. They get it, right? So I would say, man, it literally is for anybody, right? I think sometimes there is this idea about CrossFit that it's all these jacked bros in a room lifting crazy amounts of weight over our heads. When I tell people all the time, I work out every single day with people who are 20 years older and 20 years younger than I am, right? All different, and I was listening to a podcast this morning just talking about how CrossFit is less about body types and gender, and it's more about a mindset. It's a shared mindset that we have for anybody who wants to grow, anybody who wants to get better at life, right? Literally any level of fitness, whether you've been doing fitness or been played college athletics, or you've never done a day of fitness in your life, like you could literally come in the gym and scale appropriately and do safe movement, be coached by excellent coaches, get a good workout in. And it doesn't matter what it looks like, or if you win the workout or not, if you're engaged in that process. So what I tell people all the time is like, look, just come drop in, or better than dropping in, come commit to 3 months and see if your life hasn't changed. I'm not even necessarily saying your body has changed, but if your life hasn't changed, if you're not a more confident person, if you're not a person who has more people around you, the people at the gym will welcome you in. Again, I just literally 20 years younger and 20 years older than me is what I talk about all the time, that I work out with every single morning. And sometimes the people that are 20 years older than me kick my butt. And a lot of times people are 20 years younger kick my butt. And sometimes I kick all their butts, right? And so it's not about winning, it's about being a part of that process together. And so that you'll never find a better place to progress through community than in CrossFit. Now, I mean, not all CrossFit boxers are equal, right? That's why I love Southpaw. I love, Nick, what you've built. I'm just so grateful for the way that you lead the coaches and the team, and for people like Addison, and it's just so much fun. So what I would say is, hey, you have nothing to lose by giving it a shot. You have nothing to lose by trying it for 3 months and seeing it. If, again, none of us are talking about losing weight or looking better, as much as I'm talking about functional fitness for life. You're fitter for life. You're more a confident person. You're more willing to face adversity when things get tough. You're a person who can bounce back more quickly when something happens to you. And so it's just fitness for life is what I tell people.
Something that we talked about earlier on, so this would be a perfect way to wrap it up, but of constantly trying to learn. And one of the things that I notice is when I'm open to it, is I often learn more from, I'll spend hours trying to, boil down what we do into a singular sentence or two, right? And, or what our mission is, or how to, I think the little description under our Facebook profile matters, right? And I want to make sure that each word is intentional. But the language that you guys use a lot of the time is just phenomenal, and that's where I get a lot of the inspiration for it. But see if your life is better. I like that a lot. It's, you probably will experience weight loss and get stronger, but there's so much else that it encompasses. Improve your life, right?
Totally. Yeah, it's we talk to our team about it a lot. If you really believe in what you're doing, you should never be afraid to invite somebody into it, right? And I really believe invitation is the key to transformation in a lot of ways, right? Things like advertisements and Facebook and marketing get people's attention, but typically it's personal invitation that actually changes people's lives, right? And so people might come across our church's webpage on Facebook. I'm like, oh, that looks cool, and never step foot in one of our services or one of our outreaches. But when somebody personally invites them in, that's a game changer, right? Yeah. And so personal invitation is the key to transformation in so many really, really important ways. And that transformation piece is just, it's progress through community. It's doing it together. And even I'll be honest, when the shutdown hit, several months ago, and we went full virtual online. I know you guys at the gym went virtual online too. We did what we had to do, but if we're honest, those of us that have, places like a gym or like a church, there's nothing like being in that room with people. No, there's just nothing like it. You can't experience the same level of transformation virtually that you can experience being physically present with people. Absolutely. Right. And I think that's so important to be physically present. So in that transformation piece, it's so important. It's one thing to say, hey, we have a good thing going on here. It's another thing to say, hey, you have to get into this room. You have to get into this gym to fully experience the transformation that's available to you. Yeah. You have to give it some time. You have to give it a few months. You're not gonna have it in one workout. It's going to be 3 months of workouts, but you're going to experience transformation. if you're willing to commit yourself and get in the room and give it a shot.
Yeah, I love that. Invitation begets transformation. That's great.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Hey man, well, thank you so much for taking time to join us today, Drew. It's awesome,
Yeah,
as always, and I'm
I
sure
love
I'll
it.
probably see you tomorrow morning, if not before.
I'll see you tomorrow morning, 6
Take
a.m.
care, man.
Love it.